key part of our vision here at Crossroads is to engage with people of all ages at all stages of their spiritual journey. And sometimes there are unique types of people that have challenges that need to be met on a specialized basis. I'm pleased today to introduce the president of Corpath Business Forums, Mr. John Wiseman. John, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And John, tell us about Corpath, perhaps the vision and origin of it and who it serves.
Well, Corpath started around 2000, and our vision is to provide life transformation for high-level executives and Christian business owners through providing small group forums across the country where 6 or 9 businessmen get together and challenge one another and practice accountability in the areas of business, personal and family life, and their spiritual life.
And I'm from the marketplace, as you know. I'm a fairly recent new CEO here at Crossroads, so I have a sense of your members and those you're serving. But let's try and unpack that a little bit. I'm interested in the unique types of challenges that high-level executives or entrepreneurs face that make something special required.
Mm-hmm. Well, the feedback from our members tells me that probably the 2 biggest challenges they face is, number 1 is isolation. When you're leading a public company or a private business, it's hard to know who to confide in, who to take advice from. And so that challenge, we feel, is one of our core value propositions, that surrounded by a group of advisors or peers, our business leaders eliminate that isolation from their life and find good counsel.
And is it possible for you to take us to sort of a day in the life of one of these business leaders and maybe some of those challenges that they face in their isolation?
Well, the challenges our members face are as unique and varied as business itself. But the general themes that I hear over and over again are the relentless pressure of making payroll, raising capital to keep the business capitalized, the HR challenge, getting good staff, motivating them, treating them right. And then the regular balanced scorecard of any business, quality control, customer service, and just watching the financial dashboard.
And lots of performance-driven expectations, I suppose, from all kinds of areas.
The word that comes to my mind is just relentless pressure.
Yeah.
And that can be deteriorative of spiritual life and family life.
And I can remember as a CEO myself, I didn't just think of our employees. So when I was lying awake early in the morning, I would think of a couple of hundred employees, but also the spouse and the children, and in a sense the greater responsibility that one carried that was met by the success, I suppose, the financial health and well-being of the operation being led or being operated. Let's talk about John Wiseman for a moment and take us back a little bit on what you've been doing in your life and sort of where did you and Corpath converge?
Well, I was 20 years as a church minister, first with the BCOQ here, the Baptist Convention of Ontario and Quebec, here in the East, where I was ordained at Walmer Road in Toronto, and then moved west, and eventually my last church was 7 years as the small group specialist at First Alliance Church in Calgary. And that's where I developed a passion for the unique needs of marketplace leaders. The small group systems, the men's groups of churches simply were not meeting that sense of isolation, that need for high confidentiality, that need for peer advice. And so in 2005, I left the clergy ministry and went into marketplace ministry, started an HR consultancy. Where I just basically, it's eat what you kill in consultancy, and I survived at that for 5 years, and then was recruited to come into Corpath to help them, move into, independence and growth.
Why do you think, John, then why do you think that, how many small groups would you have been leading at the peak in terms of your ministry there in Calgary? Would there have been 50 or
At First Alliance, we had about 130 adult groups and about 60 or 70 what we called ministry groups.
So they're a local church ministry with very effective small groups. What is it that makes it not feasible for the executive leadership entrepreneurs to sort of find their place in a small group ministry in a typical church?
Well, the feedback that I hear from our members as to why a small group experience wasn't feasible for them is they just feel misunderstood by the church. Number one, most of them see their businesses as a calling, not as a means of producing wealth for the clergy calling or clergy ministry. And so there's that sense of misunderstanding. There's also just the carefulness of not being able to be completely transparent in a group of non-peers where there's maybe not as a high confidentiality culture as we have created in Corpath.
So let's go to a Corpath small group then, if we could, or a peer group. What is it that's unique there that enables that transparency and accountability in a Corpath forum?
Well, first of all, it's our high confidentiality. Our standard for confidentiality is nothing, nobody, never. Whatever is said or shared in a Corpath forum cannot even be shared with that member's spouse. And that just eliminates any kind of error in revealing a confidential matter. Secondly, the moderators are trained to value any kind of vulnerability or transparency sharing and to model it. Most groups follow the lead of the leader, and we train our moderators, if you want transparency and vulnerability, be transparent and vulnerable, and then honor it when the group forum members respond. And we believe that that ability to be transparent, share what keeps them up at night, as you phrased it, and get good advice back provides a competitive advantage for our business members.
Let's explore a little more around something you mentioned earlier relating to wealth creation for a moment, because I find, again, the business community often misunderstood a little bit in this wealth creation concept. The difference between, I suppose, on one end of the spectrum where an entire life is dedicated solely to the creation of wealth, or perhaps what I might say a Christian businessman's pursuit of wealth creation as a calling. And can you talk to this spectrum a little bit, how that goes down in churches and I'll call it a Christian view of such matters, and may I say, the nobleness of the wealth creation calling?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, let me quote the vice president of Coca-Cola was at a Willow Creek conference a number of years ago, and she said something that hit me right between the eyes. She said, business people are the sole creators of wealth on earth. Government doesn't create wealth. Education institutions don't create wealth. Church institutions do not create wealth. Only business creates wealth that allows all of the above to function. And so when I go to Romans 8 in the list of gifts, or Romans 12 verse 8, sorry, in verse 8 there's giving as a gift, which we all know how that functions, but then the second half of that verse talks about leadership as a gift and to do it diligently. Now, if you go to the NIV, there's a little note there that says this could be translated to provide for others. And so that is kind of a theology for business as a calling. When you create wealth, create jobs, you are providing for the community, for the government, for all human structures to operate. That's a very high calling. And that is something that we remind our members of, regularly.
Right, and in fact, most ministries are depending on that very wealth creation, as you say. How would a member, a Corpath member, if we could line them up here and they were able to say how this experience has helped them, what types of things would they say?
Well, I've actually got a quote from one of our members, if I could read it. This is from Alex Baum, who's the owner of Cochrane Toyota in Alberta. and this is on our website. His testimony is, there are few places I can get to know someone well enough for them to challenge me in all the important spheres of my life. My Corpath Forum provides me with relationships where I can be encouraged, held accountable, and mentored by others who have also felt alone in their leadership role. Also, the forum as a whole has provided relevant insights to the business and spiritual dimensions of the major decisions that I face in business. One of the core value propositions that we have is not only the competitive advantage from just pursuing excellence in their business and personal, family, and spiritual life, but also in just the elimination of the sense of isolation, the good counsel from a trusted board of advisors who are at their same peer level, and the high confidentiality culture where they don't have to worry that if they reveal something material about their company, it's going to come back to them in the marketplace. That's key.
You know, as a businessman myself, I wish Corpath was in existence when I was in the marketplace. You are fulfilling and helping fulfill a great need for a perhaps small in number community, but one with unique needs and with tremendous possibilities as wealth creators, as a calling from God Himself. So thank you very much for sharing with us. And just as we end up, could you, if someone's watching today that feels they'd like to be a member of Corpath or join one of these peer clusters, how would they do that?
Well, probably the easiest route for entry is to go to our website, which your viewers will see in a minute on the screen, www.corpath.ca, and there's a membership tab there. And first of all, it explains who we seek to serve, because our market niche is the executive level or large business owners. Then there's a tab for membership inquiry form, which would come directly to the Corpath office, and we have a 24-hour turnaround. Someone will call them within 24 hours.
I see.
Then I usually do the first interview and get a sense of the fit, their willingness to be transparent and engage in the Corpath process, and then I would introduce them to a forum moderator who would begin the match process.
So a registration process and then a careful inclusion into the right.
We take a lot of time matching new members to groups because peer alignment is key for a successful business forum.
John, thanks for being with us today, and God bless you in this important ministry.
Thank you.